The Young and the Restless Spoilers, a frantic search for Sharon, a tale of desperation and fear. Sharon's eyelids fluttered open, her vision blurred and her breathing shallow. Her heart pounded violently as her senses sharpened, revealing the horrific reality of her situation. She was in an unfamiliar, dimly lit room. Cold metal cuffs bound her wrists to a chair, the unrelenting weight of the chains pressing against her skin. The air was thick with the smell of dampness and fear. She struggled against her restraints, her panic building with each passing second. "Where am I?" she thought, her voice caught in her throat. Her pulse raced as the faint echoes of footsteps approached. Then, the shadows parted, and she saw them, the faces of her captors. Ian, Ward and Jordan loomed over her, their expressions cold and calculating. "Stay calm," Ian said, his voice unsettlingly smooth. "You're not going to die, if you cooperate." Sharon's tears welled up uncontrollably as she gazed into their emotionless eyes. Jordan smirked and added, "Once our plan succeeds, you'll walk out of here unharmed. Until then, silence is your best option." Their words provided no comfort. Even though they promised her freedom, Sharon's instincts screamed otherwise. Fear gripped her chest like a vice as she realized she was merely a pawn in their sinister game. She cried herself hoarse, but the oppressive silence of the room only amplified her despair. Meanwhile, Nick Newman was a man possessed. The news of Sharon's disappearance had ignited a firestorm of urgency within him. His eyes, bloodshot from sleepless nights, scanned every corner of Genoa City. Armed with unshakable determination, he pounded on doors, stormed into houses, and questioned everyone who might have seen Sharon. "Have you seen her? Sharon Newman, anything at all?" His voice carried a desperate edge that left no room for refusal. The fear of Sharon's death consumed him. Each passing hour deepened his torment, and the thought of losing her forever was unbearable. Every unturned stone, every unanswered question, felt like a dagger to his chest. He wasn't just searching for Sharon, he was fighting against the guilt and regret that would haunt him for a lifetime if he failed to bring her back. Nick's relentless pursuit drew the attention of friends and strangers alike. Some offered support, while others whispered about his obsessive determination. But Nick didn't care. He was willing to do whatever it took, even risk his own life, to save Sharon. At the Newman Ranch, tension ran high. Faith, Sharon and Nick's daughter, felt an ominous dread in her heart. Despite reassurances from Mariah, her older sister, Faith was inconsolable. "I know she's gone." Faith sobbed, her voice cracking with grief. "Mom's dead. I can feel it, Mariah. I just know it." Mariah knelt before her younger sister, gripping her shoulders tightly. "Don't say that, Faith. Mom is strong. Dad's going to find her, he won't stop until he does." But Mariah's words, though steady, couldn't mask her own fears. Deep down, she wrestled with the same dark thoughts. What if Faith was right? What if Sharon was gone forever? The sisters clung to each other, their tears mingling as they sought comfort in a situation that felt increasingly hopeless. Their shared grief and fear mirrored the growing despair in the Newman family, a despair that threatened to unravel them all. Back in the dark room, Sharon sat in quiet agony. Her tears had dried, but her fear remained ever present. Ian and Jordan's cryptic words echoed in her mind. What was their plan? And why did it involve her? Every minute felt like an eternity as she replayed the moments leading to her capture. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Ian stepped inside. He carried a tray with food and water, placing it on the small table next to her. "Eat," he commanded, his tone devoid of sympathy. Sharon hesitated, her hands trembling. Ian's patience wore thin as he leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "You'll need your strength," he said ominously. "We're just getting started." Her stomach churned with anxiety, but Sharon forced herself to take a few bites. She needed to stay alive, to endure long enough for Nick to find her, if he ever would. Nick, now on the outskirts of the city, scoured abandoned buildings and questioned anyone who crossed his path. His resolve was unwavering, but his body was nearing its limits. He hadn't eaten in hours, hadn't slept in days, yet he pressed on, fueled by pure determination. In one particularly desolate area, he stumbled upon a clue, a piece of fabric that matched the blouse Sharon had been wearing the day she disappeared. His heart surged with a mixture of hope and dread. "Sharon," he called out, his voice echoing in the emptiness. "I'm coming for you." As the days stretched into nights, the stakes grew higher. Ian and Jordan's plan remained a mystery, but its consequences were becoming clearer. Sharon's life hung in the balance, and Nick's search was racing against time. Faith, still clinging to her intuition, whispered a silent prayer for her mother's safety. Mariah, refusing to let despair consume her, joined Nick in his search, driven by the same unrelenting love and determination. The battle to save Sharon was far from over, but one thing was certain: the Newman family's unwavering love and resilience would be tested like never before. Would they find her in time, or would the shadows of Genoa City claim another victim? The clock was ticking, and every second counted. A crumbling alliance, the fragility of Ian Ward and Jordan's partnership. Sharon sat in the dimly lit room, her wrists still bound, her spirit teetering between despair and defiance. Meanwhile, her captors, Ian Ward and Jordan, were on the verge of a breakdown, their uneasy alliance showing cracks under the weight of conflicting ambitions and simmering egos. Ian paced back and forth in the room adjacent to where Sharon was held, his mind racing with calculations. He had always prided himself on his cunning and ability to manipulate others, but even he could sense the volatility brewing between him and his accomplice, Jordan. "Listen," Ian barked at Jordan, who sat in a chair with her arms crossed, her expression sour. "Your job is simple: keep an eye on her. If she escapes, we're finished. Do you understand?" "Finished." Jordan rolled her eyes, her patience wearing thin. "Do you think I don't know that? You don't have to lecture me like I'm a child." Ian stopped pacing and glared at her, his voice lowering to a dangerous tone. "This isn't about pride, Jordan. If Sharon gets out, it's not just prison we'll face. You've seen what Newman can do. He'll bury us." Jordan's lips tightened, her resentment boiling beneath the surface. She hated being left behind, stuck in this dingy hideout, while Ian freely roamed about, tending to his so-called grand plan. He always had a way of making himself the center of the operation, the mastermind pulling the strings. But Jordan was tired of playing second fiddle. She was no pawn in anyone's game. "You think you're untouchable, don't you?" she snapped, rising from her chair. "You're out there, moving pieces on the chessboard, while I'm stuck here babysitting her." She gestured angrily toward the room where Sharon was held. "I'm not your lackey, Ian. I have plans of my own." Ian raised an eyebrow, a smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. "Plans? Oh, Jordan, don't flatter yourself. Without me, you'd have no idea how to execute anything worthwhile." That was the final straw. Jordan's face flushed with anger as she stepped closer to Ian, her finger jabbing at his chest. "Don't underestimate me, Ian. I'm just as smart, if not smarter, than you. And I'm sick of you treating me like I'm disposable." Ian laughed mockingly, but the tension in the air was palpable. "Smart? Is that why you're here, Jordan? Because you're so brilliant? Face it, you need me. And as long as Sharon's in that room, you'll do as I say." But Jordan had already tuned him out. Her mind raced with thoughts of rebellion. She couldn't stand the way Ian lorded over her, always one step ahead, always in control. She wanted freedom, not just from the law, but from Ian himself. That night, as Ian left to attend to some mysterious errand, Jordan seized her opportunity. She rummaged through a battered suitcase in the corner of the hideout, pulling out a collection of wigs, makeup, and disguises. If Ian could move freely, so could she. It was time to make her mark. She transformed herself meticulously, her reflection in the cracked mirror showing a stranger's face staring back. Satisfied with her appearance, she slipped out of the hideout, leaving Sharon chained and alone. Her plan was simple: to meet with potential allies, people she had been scouting for weeks, those who could help her overthrow Ian and take control of the operation. But her absence didn't go unnoticed. Sharon, though exhausted and scared, had been watching Jordan's every move. She noticed the carelessness with which Jordan locked the door behind her, leaving just enough of an opening for Sharon's resourcefulness to kick in. When Ian returned later that night, he immediately sensed something was wrong. The tension that had been building between him and Jordan now erupted into full-blown paranoia. He checked Sharon's room, and to his relief, she was still there, but her silence unnerved him. Something had shifted. Jordan stormed back in minutes later, her disguise hastily removed. She was fuming, her meeting having gone awry. The people she sought to recruit had questioned her loyalty, citing her reliance on Ian as a sign of weakness. "You were gone," Ian said coldly, his arms crossed as he stared her down. "Where did you go?" "None of your business," Jordan snapped, brushing past him. Ian grabbed her arm, his grip firm. "It is my business. You're jeopardizing everything. What part of stay here and watch her don't you understand?" Jordan wrenched her arm free, her voice rising. "I'm not your puppet, Ian. I'm done playing by your rules. You think you're so invincible, but guess what? You're nothing without me." The argument escalated, their voices reverberating through the hideout. Sharon listened intently, her mind working furiously. Their discord might just be her chance. The alliance between Ian Ward and Jordan was unraveling, piece by piece. Their egos, their mistrust, and their thirst for power were tearing them apart. Neither would admit it, but they were both terrified of failure, of betrayal, and of the consequences of their own ambitions. As they argued, Sharon felt the cold metal of the cuff around her wrist give way slightly. She had found a weak spot, and she wasn't about to let this opportunity slip through her fingers. With each moment of their shouting match, she worked harder, her determination growing stronger. The question now wasn't just whether Ian and Jordan's partnership would survive, it was whether Sharon could escape before their crumbling alliance turned deadly.